Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. I want to thank the staff here for all their support in making this happen. And I'm really happy that you can be here with us today. We'll get the slideshow up right now. So as Christina already mentioned, my presentation is on child resiliency. And I'm going to give you the things that I have over the years found to be the most helpful when I work with kids and families that are dealing with behavior that arises from trauma. I'm going to try clicking myself here, Clint, and see what happens. So a lot of our kids experience trauma as part of relationships. So for example, child abuse in families where parents are struggling, or from people that they know. And it's my belief that it's through relationship that children heal, through positive relationship. I like to introduce myself with that picture on the right, which my son drew of me when he was about 8 years old. And obviously in that picture, I look hideous with terrible hair and scary eyes and fangs and A-bombs and dynamite earrings. And it was at a time when he was supposed to be cleaning his room and he wasn't. And so I was stressed that day. I don't remember what I had going on in my life, but instead of connecting with him, which is one of the things we'll be talking about later, I probably yelled at him like, "What are you doing? You should be cleaning your room." And so instead of cleaning his room, he drew that lovely picture of me. And what cracks me up about this picture is even the donkey, which I have a donkey at home, looks scared like, what is this crazy lady going to do next? So in that picture, he reminded me that as a parent, I need to reset. I need to be calm before I can help things get better with him and help him do better. Over the 35 plus years that I've been working, the approaches that have helped me the most are these three. I was trained by Heather Forbes and Brian Post in the approach called Beyond Consequences, Logic and Control. Heather Forbes now focuses a lot on school setting issues, so you can look her up. She's in the resource, the last handout that I give, you can look her up. And Brian Post, they've kind of separated their ways, but he has his website also, which is really wonderful. And they help people understand the behaviors that stem from trauma and the chronic stress reaction that Nadine talked about earlier. The approach I use all the time is the center one, the Nurtured Heart approach, and we'll be seeing some videos, and you have handouts in your handout drop from this also. And I love the Nurtured Heart approach, and it just enhances both the Beyond Consequences and the TBRI, Trust-Based Relational Parenting, which is the one on the right. And we'll be seeing some videos from them too, thanks to our wonderful tech staff. So first I want to talk about conceptualization, and the conceptualization that helps me the most is called the stress model that was developed by Heather Forbes and Brian Post. And I like to simplify the stress model both for parents and for kids. And so this is what I came up with, and I call this the tick people. Those of you that know me have seen this before, but I call it the tick people because I can't draw people very well and they look like fat ticks. But the one on the left shows the normal kind of ebb and flow of stress that we might feel every day. Somebody who has not experienced trauma. And so, you know, if our car doesn't start, or if we're running late or something else happens, our stress level goes up and we have a harder time dealing with things that might be bombarding us. But we develop skills to handle stress, to get through the day, and our stress level typically goes down again, up and down, maybe every day a little bit. But for kids that have experienced trauma, and certainly kids even going through the stress of COVID right now, all of our families, as Nadine talked about in her presentation, it affects the brain. Chronic stress can affect the brain so that it's like we have kids operating under a high level of stress at all times. And one of the ways I like to help parents understand this is if you can think of a time when you were really stressed, think of a time when there was just no way you could handle anything else on your plate. That's the way these kids come to us every single day. So sometimes something as simple as a request to come to dinner or finish your homework, or it's time to get ready for bed or get in the car or anything like that can seem extremely overwhelming to these kids. And they have a much smaller window of tolerance in which to handle things that come their way. So today we're going to be learning about ways to help reduce that chronic level of stress, that chronic stress response in kids, the ways that I have found most helpful. She talked also about the amygdala and how the brain becomes wired for fight, flight, or freeze. And so many of these kids that we work with, I work a lot with foster kids, kids who have experienced trauma, and they actually, because they've been bathed in experiences of fear, they often view the world as threatening. Even if we know we're safe, we know that we're not going to hurt them, we know that our classroom is safe or our home is safe, their brains unconsciously don't know that. And so they are reacting as if things are going to be terrible. And that's where we see these behaviors. I want to let you know that I do have the Tick People as a handout that you have. And whoops, I think I did the wrong one. There we go. So some of the behaviors that we might see when a child is dysregulated are either on the right or the left. And Bruce Perry talks about hypoarousal and hyperarousal. Some kids tend to kind of shut down when they're overwhelmed. We certainly see that in the classroom a lot, or at home when kids are overwhelmed and they can't seem to get their homework done. So you might see defiance, resistance, depression, or withdrawal type behaviors. And if they're hyper aroused, you might see it outwardly, like anger, hyperactivity, aggression, or vigilance, hypervigilance. A regulated child, on the other hand, will be able to be calm and focused. I wanted to back up for a second. I wanted to give you an example. I sometimes give this example. I can remember a time, if you can remember a time in your life when you were overly stressed. I certainly remember a time when my sister was dying, and I worked here at the county office at that time at an alternative school. And I wanted to go to work for a week because I thought, okay, if I don't go to work, I'm going to lose my job. I was taking care of my sister who lived in Southern California. And I actually came back for a week and worked, but my brain was not functioning at top level. I left my car in the parking lot in neutral without the brake on it. It rolled backwards and smashed into a county van. Another part-time job I had, I put my important papers on the back of my car before I got in my car. Then I drove down the highway and the papers flew all over the highway. So obviously that's an example of a time when I was at such a high stress level that I really wasn't able to stay focused on my work. So we can kind of try to imagine, just through our own experiences, what it's like for these kids every day. So this is just a helpful little slide that I like to remind parents. My child is not giving me a hard time. My child is having a hard time. What happens is when these kids' brains become dysregulated because of their fight, flight, or freeze response, it's their behaviors that show us that they're stressed. So often we don't have the words, they don't have the words to help us understand how they're feeling. That's more of an adult thing. When I was stressed out, when my sister was dying, I could compartmentalize. I had a support group. I had my highly developed coping skills to help me get through that time. But our children really don't have those. So we can try to imagine what it's like without those skills and help them build them. This is another handout that you have in your packet. It's just helpful reminders of how we might typically respond to a kid versus what would a supportive response be, where we're keeping that trauma in mind or that stress level in mind so that a child can feel supported and safe with us. So for example, what were you thinking? And instead you can say, I'm going to help you with this. Go to your room. Instead you can say, come here, I've got you. We'll be talking about time in versus time out later. So please feel free to look at this handout or keep it or print it out. The other thing I find extremely helpful with parents is what I call the viewing lens. Some people call it seeing through the lens of trauma. I like to use this iceberg, and I have a picture of an iceberg in my office. And the top part of the iceberg, the part that we see, daily in our classroom, in our homes, the behaviors are that the acting out behaviors or challenging behaviors that tell us that something's not right. Our kids not handling things well. And what's so helpful, instead of taking these behaviors personally or becoming extremely frustrated, we can try to remember that underneath this, there are some underlying fears that are unconscious, likely some negative or traumatic experiences that kind of tend to create that fight or flight response, or there's some unmet needs or needed skills that they haven't yet developed. And that's kind of a Ross Green approach. For those of you that know Ross Green, or he's another really good guy to look up. He has the assessment of lagging skills and unmet needs. This is another little handout that I like parents to print out and put on their refrigerators or mirrors or whatever. Thinking of your child as behaving badly disposes you to think of punishment, right? Thinking of our kids as behaving badly, their challenging behavior, makes us think that they're doing it deliberately. But thinking of our child as struggling to handle something difficult encourages us to help them through their distress. So if we can remember that this kid doesn't have the skills to handle the stress they're under, or doesn't, or is responding from a place of fear, then we can approach that child in a much more helpful way. So those are the ways that I view children. For example, when I used to work at the County Office of Education, we'd occasionally, well, maybe daily, have a kid rush out of class, slam the door, and cuss at the teacher. Damn this school, damn that teacher, damn you too, Miss Combs. I was the counselor at the school. And instead of thinking, no, you don't talk to me like that, you don't cuss like that, that's not okay, I knew that this kid was dysregulated. This kid was very stressed and they just had met their max. They were not able to handle whatever happened in class. So the most important thing was to with that viewing lens, say, okay, this is someone who's stressed and needs to calm down before we can help support them. So I would just, let them pace or whatever they needed to do to calm down. And then they very typically would be able to talk about it or even apologize to the teacher. So the 6 tools that I tend to use all the time with families when I work with families with kids with challenging behavior are these. One is connect before you correct. Another is identifying desired behaviors or lagging skills. Another is play practice and developing scripts. The other is using the nurtured heart approach, positive recognitions. Another is offering choices and compromises. And then redos, try it agains, resettings, and time in versus time out. So the rest of this presentation will be actually giving you examples of what these look like and how they help. So connect before you correct is one that I encourage parents to use all the time. And remember the tick people, if a kid's really stressed out and we're asking them to do something or we expect better behavior, one of the things that connect before you correct does is it helps them know that you're on their team. One of the quotes that I love from TBRI is, it's not me against you and your behavior. It's me and you against whatever happened to you in the past. And this tiny moment of connection, it might look like you get close to the kid on the floor. I get down on the floor very often when I'm working with a young kid or a child who is on the floor. And we try to make eye contact. I never force eye contact, but you can say things like, let me see your beautiful eyes, or can you give me your eyes? And then you just notice what they're doing at that moment. You notice their feelings, you notice what they're involved in. So you might say something like, I can see that you're really involved in your game right now, and it looks like you're really on a high level. Guess what? It's time for dinner, so I need you to come in and have dinner now. Come sit with us, or can you, I need you to pause it so you can come in with us. So it's just a moment of connection, even longer if you have the time, to help kids feel safe with you. It helps their brains get out of a freeze response. I'll describe that in a minute. And then connect with you and know inside that you're there for them, that they can do what you ask. It's that they're not going to be overwhelmed. Very often, because when kids are in this high level of stress, when you ask them to do something simple like fold your clothes, come to dinner, they'll be so stressed out. Their brain is actually thinking, okay, can I handle this? Was this a kind request? Is this a threat? They're not thinking of that consciously. It's really unconscious, but sometimes you can look at a kid and it looks like maybe that they're trying to think of a way out of what you're asking them to do, but it's really not. It's really that freeze response. If you get a deer in the headlight look, when you ask a child to do something, it's very much likely a freeze response. And so connecting before you correct, connecting before you request, connecting before everything helps create that little bit of reduced stress and felt safety in children. There's some videos that I like to demonstrate that, but basically, if you come at a child with understanding and empathy and recognize what they might be feeling or doing, that's what connect before you correct is. Okay, the second one I want to go is identifying desired behaviors and lagging skills. So many times I work with families who are really upset about a child's behavior. So for example, they're disrespectful, or they're rude, or they're impatient, or they interrupt all the time. And one of the things that I really want to remind parents to do is we have to be clear about what we want from that child. And it really helps to remember the iceberg. So we have the behavior that we see that we don't like, that bothers us, that gets in the way of that child's success. And then we want to look at underneath it. Okay, so is it a lagging skill? Do they need to learn patience? Do they need to learn what respect looks like? What exactly do we want them to do? And or is it a fear response? Is a child getting overwhelmed by noise? Is the child getting overwhelmed by other expectations? So we really want to be a stress detective also. I really often depend on parents to tell me what was going on at the time, and teachers too, what was going on at the time just to when before the kid took off in the parking lot or from the classroom, that kind of thing. We really want to be a stress detective. And then we also have to be clear about what we want. This little example is something I worked with a parent recently who has a child in foster care. And the child was doing things when he was upset or angry, like hitting, screaming, having a tantrum. When he was sad, he was shutting down, becoming defiant. When he was worried, he had all kinds of crazy behavior. I laughed at Nadine's quote, I think it was, I don't know karate, but I know crazy. So, and sometimes we get all kinds of crazy behavior when a kid is anxious. And so what this mom did was she helped the child understand. She let the child pick out these emojis that represent when he was feeling mad, when he was feeling sad, when he was feeling worried or upset or concerned. And then they identified the behaviors that they want the child to develop. So when the kid's mad, they identified that he wants to be able to ask for help. This was a religious family, so they tended to pray. When he was sad, they identified that he would get a hug. So we're helping this child learn how to ask for help. We're helping this child learn how to do activities that will calm the anger or redirect the anger. And when the kid was worried, they identified that the child would talk with a parent. So we want to pair the behaviors, the top of the iceberg behaviors that we are concerned about and want to help with a productive or constructive behavior, and be very clear about that with the kid and support them in being able to do that, teaching them, guiding them, doing it with them, modeling, all that stuff. So another thing that I do, this is the third one, is I once you have like the desired behavior, that the skill, the lagging skill or the desired behavior that you want to see your kid learn, it really helps to what I call play practice the desired behaviors. And this is a TBRI strategy. And I brought my puppets. I have a donkey and a seal. And sometimes I use puppets with kids because it helps to, kids have so much shame, and parents don't often realize this, but kids have so much shame about their negative behavior because it feels so out of control to them, because it really isn't under their control, that it's hard for them to like model, because I first model the bad behavior in a playful way. So family or in a classroom, whatever, we might model disrespect, like, time for you to put your book away. No, I'm not going to put my book away. So everybody claps. Wow, that was good showing no disrespect, or that was good showing disrespect, because they acted well. And then we would model what we want to see. Hey, it's time to put your book away. Oh, I wasn't done, but okay. So then we model the right way, the way we want them to do it. So we've practiced both how it feels to do it the wrong way, and then how it feels to do it the right way. But it's done in a very playful way to try to take the shame out of it and to try to make it a fun, connecting activity instead of a you're in trouble kind of activity. Okay, and the other thing I like to do is develop scripts or gentle reminders that link the practice behavior to what we expect. So for example, with respect, if we just practice showing respect, we might be able, if a kid starts to get disrespectful, no, I'm not going to, we might say, oops, try that again with respect, or, oh, was that respectful? And that will link them, it links their brain to what they've practiced already. So that's one way I really like to help families, and it's a lot of fun too. There's a handout in the handouts called Encouraging Scripts. And it has a lot of different scripts that you can play practice behaviors like, can you use your words? Can you tell me how you feel? Is that being kind? That kind of thing. So I hope that's helpful. So here's an example of a video clip. This is a TBRI camp for kids that lived in a residential facility, and they're practicing respect, like I mentioned. This is great, Clint, it's working.
Noelle, it's time to get ready for bed.
That's stupid. I don't feel like going to sleep.
Wrong way.
Hang on a minute, I'm gonna try that again.
Yeah,
I'll go out and
whatever,
come back, all right?
whatever.
Let's try it again. Noelle, it's time to go to bed.
Can I have a compromise, please? Like 10 minutes?
What do you want to do?
10 minutes, and then I'll go to sleep. Everything
Okay,
done.
you have everything done in
Yes.
10 minutes? Be ready, lights out.
Yes.
Okay, got a deal.
And everybody applauds. Oh, that's good, no respect. And then we practice it the right way, and then everybody applauds. Great, showing respect. So these young people get to experience what it feels like when they're doing no respect, and then experience success at showing respect. What other brave souls want to demonstrate?
While others share their skits with the group.
So how many of y'all would like to go do it for the camera?
2 teenagers decline, yet they're perfectly willing to perform in the hallway for our cameras.
Yeah,
Scott, you gotta come do your chore.
Man, forget you. I'm on the phone. Can't you see I'm on the phone?
It's a great demonstration of the power of giving choices.
Yeah, it's time to go, man.
Man, forget that.
You look at those 2 teenagers and their buddies in the hallway, there's pure magic. There's pure chemistry.
Nice shot, man.
Thank you.
Hey, man, it's time to line up.
Can you give me about 10 minutes to finish off this
10
magazine?
minutes and you coming?
Yeah, I'll be there. All right, thank you, man.
Cool.
They are enjoying themselves, they're practicing a skill, they're doing something together.
Scott, you gotta come do your chore.
I'm on the phone right now. Can I have 5 more minutes?
5 more minutes and then what?
Then I'll come do my chore.
Okay, you
All
got
right,
it.
thank you. Good job.
I would have missed all of that if I had a rigid idea. Everybody stays here, everybody does it the same way. If I've got my intention set on this is what we're doing, I'm gonna miss.
Okay, and that was good. So the other thing that you may have noticed there in the middle video where the staff was trying the second part where he's trying it the right way. He came in and he connected with that kid. He connected before he corrected. Instead of saying, hey man, it's time for lights out, he said, hey, nice shot. That's a little tiny example of connect before you correct. And that just eased their, made that connection, positive relationship. And then he can say, hey, lights out. And then they went on to ask about a compromise, which is one of the skills they're teaching these teens also how to learn is you can ask for a compromise instead of being defiant. Here's an example of using scripts.
I want you to write one thing that you've learned at camp, like show respect, stick together, have fun, no hurts.
Scripts are a handy and playful way to redirect your child and stop violent outbursts before they begin.
One primary tool that we use in helping the children learn new behaviors is what we call scripts. They're just simply short phrases that have great meaning.
Good eyes, good asking, thank you.
It's a vocabulary that honors relationships and honors a particular way of being with other people.
Gentle and kind, Abby. Let's try it again.
That's very direct, very simple, and very straightforward.
Thank you. That was nice.
Remembering again that our kids have usually trouble processing many words, so very short phrases can help our children learn to self-regulate, to modulate, and to come back online.
All right, 3 rules for Miss Karen's group. Stick together. No. Have. Woo-hoo.
Because our goal is to help teach the children the things they never learned.
That social skills, the ability to get along with others, to negotiate, to be able to play with other children, to be able to be compliant with adults, that comes from a long history of social interaction with competent adults. And our kids simply haven't had those experiences. They haven't had those opportunities to learn.
If you practice scripts with your child consistently during calm and good times, they'll work when you need them the most, during emotional crises.
Both of those clips are from TBRI, Trust-Based Relational Intervention. And on my last handout, which is Caregiver Resources, there's a lot of YouTube links that you can see to watch those exact videos. And this is an example of the Encouraging Scripts handouts that I have. Karen Purvis died a couple years ago, which is really sad. That was the gray-haired lady that was in the video. David Cross now does TBRI, their program. It's an incredible program. So the other approach that I absolutely cannot live without is called the Nurtured Heart approach. And I'm just going to give you a tiny little bit of taste of it today and focus on 2 parts of the Nurtured Heart approach. And the first one is Nurtured Heart approach, positive recognitions. And the Nurtured Heart approach is really a very in-depth way of understanding energy. And when we give energy to our skills, it's about becoming aware of and skilled at giving energy or connection when things are going well, and not giving energy when things are going not well. And there's a very specific way of praising kids intentionally that focuses on what we're working towards, building those skills that are lagging in our kiddos. So, and it's a way of helping kids see the greatness in themselves through our recognition. So an experiential recognition, a positive recognition, is we describe what we see, the behavior that we see that's good. So for example, I noticed you were really angry. You had your fists like this, and you look like you were just about ready to hit your brother, but you didn't. You are showing so much self-control right now. That would be one example. You describe what you saw. That description is such an important part because not only does it let the kid know that you see them, that you're noticing them, you're paying attention, but it also tells them, you know, something they actually did that they can't deny. Sometimes when we give praise like, that was awesome, that was cool, you did a good job, a kid doesn't really know what you're talking about, or they might just say, oh, you're just saying that, you're my mom. But when we describe what we see, they can't deny that. And then we get to add the character quality that we saw in that moment. And that's where the power of the nurtured heart approach comes in. Here's a couple examples. Sarah, I noticed that you just looked irritated by that word problem, yet you kept on working on it until it was done, which shows that you are perseverant and diligent student. Joss, I see that you put both your lunch money form and your daily planner on the table for my signature. Wow, that's successful, setting us both up for success and helps us get out of the house tomorrow morning when we don't have to scramble to get those things done. Way to show responsibility and organization. Claire, you just handled telling me something very challenging that happened at school today with honesty and maturity. I want to honor you for handling that situation with such integrity. Or you can flip them. And this is a way to flip it. You put the positive character trait that you see first and then the description second. Mike, right there was evidence of how patient and kind you are. That elderly man was approaching the same checkout line as you, and you let him go first in line. What amazing respect you just showed him. Here's a couple examples of the nurtured heart approach.
I'm sure that was very uncomfortable. I know, this morning getting ready there was a lot of nervousness about the situation and what we were going to talk about. And, and she had a choice. She had a choice to come here or not. And she decided to make the choice to come here and be open and talk about it with everyone. And, right now she could even be fleeing from the room.
Right, exactly.
And she's not. She's not. That says a lot about you, that you can make it through something awkward or something uncomfortable, and maybe even enjoy it a little bit or get something out of it.
Okay, here's an example in the classroom.
What would you like to use, Marlette?
Cat.
A cat? Someone in Tribe 2, what would you like to use, Brianna? A dog. Boys and girls, you just worked so well together right there. Thank you for not fighting and feuding over what we were going to choose in that group. In Tribe 4, what would you like to choose? Angela?
A frog.
A frog. Boys and girls, put your eyes on me before we do our vote. Let me just take a moment right here to say, during that process, no one fussed, no one was fighting, no one was saying, pick me, I want my answers. You could have been doing all of those things. You could have been fussing and feuding and yelling about what you wanted, but you were respectful to each of your classmates in your tribe. You know what that shows? It shows discipline. Exactly, Brianna. Thank you, Haley. And it shows teamwork. It shows you are disciplined first graders and you have teamwork. Kiss your brains for that.
I love that one. Okay, and here's one of the handouts that you have in your handout folder also is called Tell Me About Your Greatness. And it's just a little reminder that I encourage parents to put on their refrigerators or have at the dinner table or at nighttime in a bedtime routine. Ask kids about where they showed greatness that day. Here's an example of a mom doing that with her daughter, Carly.
Okay, so Carly, where tonight did you show the greatness of patience?
When Mom was on the phone, I drank patience and
what did you
until she was done on the phone.
Yeah, what could you have done?
I could have done just hitting and screaming and saying, Mommy, I really want you. But I really reset.
You didn't do those things?
No.
What greatness does that show that you didn't do those things even though you could have?
Self-control.
Oh, good to know. Okay. So, Carly, where did you show tonight? Where is there evidence of you being...
How about on the potty one?
Tell me about that. What did you show there?
When Mommy was trying to get on the potty and she was she was going to go let the dogs out. But I went to, and both of the dogs came in.
And what greatness were you showing there?
Well, Self-control.
Self-control. Self-control is everywhere. Can I tell you what greatness I saw in that moment?
What?
That you were showing the greatness of being kind. Because you were letting mommy take care of going to the bathroom so that you could take care of a dog. How about where did you show the greatness of... Ooh, right there. Right there. I just caught you. I just caught you using the greatness of...
I'm not hitting the dog when he was being mean to me.
Yeah, because you totally could have, right? Was he bugging you?
Yep, but he was really being nice.
Well,
I
yeah.
kind of like that.
Yeah, and you could have hit, and you could have yelled at him,
You're cute.
but you were just clear with him, and then you stopped. And that shows
And
that you...
I love him.
Yes, that shows how much you love him, that you are a kind and loving, sweet girl. Anything else you want to say?
Not tonight.
Okay, see you later.
Can I see the video?
I love that one. So this is kind of what your one of your handout looks like. It's just got a bunch of different character traits on it. And it's a way to talk with your kids. So for example, if you say, tell me about your greatness today, and they go, I don't know. And then you can say, well, tell me something you felt good about today. And they might say something like, well, my friend was getting bullied at school and I told him to leave her alone and be nice. And then you might say, wow, what greatness does that show? And you can say whatever you want. You can say it shows courage, it shows great friendship, it shows wisdom. You get to decide what that act that your child did shows. The other wonderful thing about the Nurtured Heart approach is, remember, we have the behavior of the iceberg and the skills we're working to help build. You can focus your intention and be very intentional about the use of the Nurtured Heart approach recognitions. And if you have a kid who needs to develop responsibility, every little thing that they do that shows responsibility, taking care of their pet, every little thing, you can say, wow, look at that responsibility you just showed. You just did X, Y, and Z. And I'm telling you that this really encourages kids, maybe it's obvious, but to do more of that. Okay, another strategy that I often work with parents on, and this is really good with teens, but also works with younger kids too, is offering choices and compromises. We saw a little bit of that in the last DVD or the video where we saw the kids practicing respect. And so they would say, hey, time to quit, get off that phone. And they'd say, oh, can I just have one more minute? And that's like a compromise. Or we might want to say, if we're talking to a kid, I can see that you're really, really angry. Would you like to go shoot some hoops or take some breaths with me? You can give them options of what you want them to do instead. It really avoids that black and white thinking and headbutting, and encourages connection, movement, and growth in the right direction. A lot of the kids I work with have very controlling behavior. I mean, very controlling behavior. And it's very common in kids with a trauma history. And offering choices and compromises really helps when you're getting that kind of reaction from a kid. So the last thing is redos, resets, and time in. I'm not sure where timeout started. I think of kids with a dunce cap on in the corner of a classroom. I think of kids being sent to their room for 3 minutes if they're 3 years old and 5 minutes if they're 5 years old. And I'm not sure, I think it's from that punishment mentality where we just think, oh, if I send a kid away from me and they're in trouble and they have no fun, they're going to learn the right behavior. But as hopefully you're getting the idea, if we don't identify and help train our kids with that right behavior, they're really not going to work towards getting better at that. They may become resentful, or they may avoid doing that behavior the next time out of fear, but it really does not help create that connection and support that we're trying so hard to do with our kids. So one of the things that you can do is have time in versus time out. And what that would look like is having a kid sit next to you. Say, come sit next to me. This is if a kid is a kind of kid that helps, but come sit next to me. So many times we think our kids should be able to self-regulate or calm down, and they really haven't developed the skills yet. When you think about it, a baby doesn't have any ability to self-regulate. They cry, and we have to try to think, okay, is it diaper? Is it food? Is it cold? Is it hot? You know, we have to figure that out. And so initially, when a child comes into the world, we are the ones that provide that self-regulation for that child. And then as children grow, they depend on what we call co-regulation. They may run away as a toddler thinking they are in charge of the world, and as soon as they skin their knee, they're back, running back to their parent, you know, very much needing support. So Time In offers us, especially with children who do not have self-regulation skills, a way to model self-regulation. If we can be calm, if we can sit there with them, so it offers that to them as opposed to sending them away, which actually kind of increases chances of kids shutting down or even become dissociative. So time in versus time out can be very, very helpful. Some kids actually need time away from people, but time in doesn't have to be like you're staring at your kid. They can be near you. You stay here. Mom's going to be right here. I'll be ready to talk to you as soon as you're calm and we're ready to talk about what we want to see instead of what just happened. So it's a way to be near your child instead of pushing them away. Another one is a tool from the Nurtured Heart approach called the reset. And a reset is basically a moment of self-regulation. It's a gift that we give ourselves, certainly, when we, like that picture of me with the horrible hair and the fangs, I needed to reset before I could ever help my son reset. And so modeling a reset can be very, very helpful. I always tell parents to model out loud and proud. If you're really frustrated, if you're stressed, just let your kid know. I'm really stressed right now. I'm trying to get, all these things done before we have to leave to school. And then say, let me reset for a second, and then do whatever you need to do. If it's taking a breath, sitting down for a moment, whatever it is, let your kids see that we all have moments of overwhelm, frustration, or dysregulation, and we all need to take responsibility for calming down. Sometimes I encourage parents to make a list of all the things they do to reset. Mine would be take a walk, sit in the hot tub, walk my dog or pet my dog, have a cup of tea, sit down, and we also have to have things that we can just do in a moment if that's all we have. And then once a parent, puts that on the refrigerator and the kids start seeing them, oh, when they get frustrated, they check their list and they pick one of those things to feel better. We can help kids also develop their reset list. What helps them calm down? It can be different for every kid. Some kids like art. Some kids need physical activity. So help them make and expand their reset or self-regulation list and encourage them to go check it out if they're out of sorts. And the way we ask for a reset in the Nurtured Heart approach is, I need you to reset. So you can say, I need you to reset. Let's go check your list if you want to, something like that. In TBRI, Trust-Based Relational Intervention, they have what they call a redo, and it's actually a physical redo. So for example, we might say, try that again with respect. And it's kind of like rewinding the time or the video so that the kid's going to go back in space physically and start over again and do it the right way. It's not a punishment. It's not done with negativity. It's not done with sternness. It's done with support. Let's try that again. And this is after you've done the play practice and they know what they need to do or how to do it. That's when you're using those scripts and saying, let's try that again. You're giving them a chance in that moment to try it again and do it the right way. And then you have an opportunity to praise them with a Nurtured Heart approach recognition, which is so much more positive than, saying, why did I tell you that so many times? Why are you doing that again? Go to your room. So we're moving away from punishment and moving towards supporting the right behavior and giving opportunities in the moment to try it again. Here's a video clip about a reset. I think this is Yolanda again in the classroom.
Can you give me an animal that's on that page?
A dog.
A dog is on that page. And Cornelia, Javari, you may come out of reset. Cornelia, can you give me an animal? A what, a sheep? It looks like a sheep.
It's a cat.
That's okay, we'll put a sheep and a cat. Javari, you may answer me now, and thank you for going straight into reset, and when you came out of reset, you simply raised your hand and got back on task. Thank you for that.
It's not on this page, but I'm just going to say a turkey.
A turkey? You can share a turkey even though it's not on that page. You know what that shows me even more, Javari? That you just jump right back into the lesson. That shows your excitement for learning. Shows what a studious student you are. You know what that means? What does that mean? It means you're so ready to learn.
So what I love about that video is, well, I like everything about that video, but it's so, I think what she does is she will tell a student, if a student's misbehaving or off task, she'll say, Jabari, I need you to reset. And I think in her classroom, they put their heads down like this, and then she'll give them permission when it looks like they're calm and ready to participate again correctly. She'll say, you can come out of reset. And then you saw what she did. She gives him praise for doing such a great job of resetting. So again, it's not a punishment. It's a gift. Take time to get back on track. Do what you need to do to get back on track. Here's an example of a TBRI redo. And again, one of the differences between a reset and a redo is you like physically start over. So it really actually gives a kid kind of a body memory also, in addition to just a mental memory of what you want them to do.
We connect to the little spirits of the children. And then we have a great set of principles that are called correcting principles.
Can you ask, not tell, Mama? Say, could I please have my fireball back?
And in these principles, we help parents learn how to redirect their child's behavior while still being...
Oh, whoops. That one ended a little bit short, but basically she's saying we're asking for behavior, the behavior that we want to see, the ones that we develop scripts for, but we're doing it in a way that allows us to maintain our connection. So she said, can you ask before taking? Can you give me good eyes? She'll ask those things. All right. So here we are at the last slide. I want you to know that I gave you in my handouts also a handout called Caregiver Resources. This is one that I developed for foster families, but also families, any family raising a kid with a trauma history. So you're welcome to look at that Caregiver Resources handout. It has links to a lot of the TBRI, trust-based relational intervention videos that you just saw on YouTube. There's quite a few. It has links to the Nurtured Heart approach. I mean, there's so much more to learn about the Nurtured Heart approach. So if it seems appealing to you, I really encourage you to go to their website and by all means, get a training. There's lots of people in various locations who are trained in the Nurtured Heart approach that are on the website that you can reach out to for that kind of training. And then my website information is there. So I think that's it. I think we're done a little bit early, which is probably kind of nice. So if we have time for any Q&A, is that all right if we do some Q&A?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I know I talked a mile a minute and I probably didn't say everything I wanted to say, but if you have any particular questions, please feel free to write them in the Q&A box. And if we have time, we'll answer a couple. Looks like there might be about 5.
We do have a question right here, Denise.
Okay, great.
So Pat says, I have used many of these techniques with success, but what is a solution for those times when allowing extra time for a redo is not practical?
Okay, so that's a good question. The question was, what if we don't have time to do a redo? And so I guess all I can say is, I'm trying to think of a situation where that might be true. The connect before you correct might really help. So if you've connected, say, honey, we're in a hurry. I can see that you're having trouble with such and such, but I need you to do X, Y, and Z. Connect before you correct might help you in that situation. You know, sometimes we just have to act. We just have to get our kids where we need them to be. So we're not talking about perfect parenting here. We're talking about doing the best we can. And I hope that answers your question. None of this is perfect. We are not perfect. Our kids are not perfect. We certainly want to model the best that we can, but we don't always have everything we need at our fingertips to make it look like a beautiful scenario on the videos. So don't feel bad about that.
I think we can take one more question.
Okay.
Somebody asks, what strategy can you offer to help kids when they are stressed about homework?
So that's more of a long-term strategy. I want you to know that I often advocate for kids, especially kids with a trauma history, either through a 504 or some other kind of contract with the school, sometimes just talking to the teacher. It's really helpful for the teacher to know that this is a kid who's feeling overwhelmed right now. Sometimes what can happen is a kid can do the homework, but they might have less number of problems, or some way that the teacher knows that they're getting what they are supposed to, but it can be less overwhelming. One of the things that I didn't tell you is that, to me, a sign of healing is, remember the tick people, so when they're real stressed and it's chronic, they're in a state of constant stress and overwhelm. So homework is not the thing that's going to help them do better. But all these strategies that we're talking about, support, identifying ways that we want to help and support them, and different ways for them to behave, can reduce that stress over time. And so what I tend to see is kids have less tantrums or meltdown less often and less intense. They're able to recover more quickly. So I think it's really important to be an advocate for your child. If your child is under extreme stress or has been through extensive trauma and they're just not at the point where homework is something that that they're really capable of doing, advocate for finding ways to reduce that demand, at least for a short period of time, until you start to see some healing happening with that child. I hope that's helpful. The other thing is, what skills do we think of the iceberg? What skills do we want to see our kids learn in attacking homework? Do we need to help them learn to chunk, take breaks? Can we sit down and do it with them? And I don't mean do it for them, although sometimes it might look a little bit like doing it for them, but just be there with them and support them. Sometimes just having someone next to them is enough to really help them do well. I hope that's helpful.